I've had one miscarriage.
I've experienced 2 miscarriages. One was in 2015 and the other happened in 2016.
I've experienced 5 miscarriages.
A miscarriage and a stillbirth.
My second miscarriage was in the fall of 2012.
It happened in August of 2017.
In 1984.
In February 2019 and in July 2019.
My miscarriage reminded me of having maybe a difficult period.
I remember distinctly I was on the train. It started to feel like I was bleeding. I just remember thinking, like, something's not right. This doesn't feel right.
I kept getting these really sharp pains in my stomach.
With my first miscarriage, I didn't know anything was wrong.
My first loss was actually a missed miscarriage, so my body was still continuing to believe that the pregnancy was happening.
I still had morning sickness, I still had cravings, I still had all the things.
With the second miscarriage, I actually didn't know it was happening until the doctor told me. You know, we've got great news. You've got one really healthy, normally developing baby, but the other embryo looks like it stopped developing right around 8 weeks.
Started having some spotting, so I went to the ER. They did not do a cervical check or check anything down there, and it wasn't until I actually got home the next day that I actually was starting to go into preterm labor.
So once I got into Grand Central Station, I went to the bathroom and it was bad. And I was bleeding a lot. And I called my OB/GYN and she said, you need to come right now. I go straight into the sonogram room and the sonogram technician starts looking and I could tell that it wasn't good just because she wasn't saying anything. And then she said, I'm sorry. She said, there's no heartbeat. 10 years later, it still makes me cry.
And kind of started explaining my options. I could go home and wait for the miscarriage to complete. It could take up to a month for the process to happen and could be very challenging and painful, or I could have a DNC, which just sounded like the easier option for us.
And I said, without hesitation, absolutely put me under. I want to wake up and it's over.
I miscarried naturally, and I felt something like dropping off me.
A lot of cramping and bleeding, but my memory was sustained over a day or a couple of days.
I just remember planning to be home and my husband being there with me and inserting the medication vaginally, and then shortly after experiencing the cramps that they said would happen due to the medication causing contractions. I then had to have follow-up ultrasounds to make sure that the tissue had cleared so that I wouldn't have further complications in the future.
At 18 weeks, her lungs weren't developed. The hospital told me that I was in full-blown labor, even though it didn't feel like it to me. And I was able to deliver her vaginally. So I got to see her take a couple breaths before she passed away.
It felt, I don't know, it felt sudden. It felt like a huge loss. It felt like, and it was only 10 weeks in. And there's a part of like my logical brain saying, you shouldn't be this upset. I felt so connected to that little thing growing inside of me and had already had all these plans and all this. I had been thinking ahead so much, you know, and now in that moment it was just all over.
So I miscarried on Tuesday and I interviewed for a job on Wednesday. It was almost an out-of-body experience because I'm in a room with people who don't know me, who don't know my story, and I'm doing my best to articulate all that I have to offer. And there's a piece of me that's died because I lost my baby yesterday.
I don't remember like losing a baby. It's like he went down the sewer. That doesn't sit well with me till today.
I had heard the phrase, you know, vanishing twin, and that sounds kind of like a magic trick or an optical illusion. That's a baby that was there that's not there anymore.
A loss is a loss. It does not matter when it happened gestationally. Mentally, you have to go through the same 5 grief steps.
Yeah, a little bit. I know that's probably not very healthy to blame yourself. But I sort of thought, you know what? Why did you get pregnant? You're 43 years old. Shouldn't have even tempted the fates. Why weren't you okay with just 2 kids? Absolutely had that self-criticism going.
I blame myself for a long time that I should have waited longer in between pregnancies. And maybe if I would have waited, an extra year, that my body or my uterus would have been strong enough and I would not have went into preterm labor with my daughter.
We were able to get pregnant, which we felt so lucky about, but then I wasn't able to stay pregnant. It felt like it was all on me.
Yes, I totally blame myself. There's some undercurrent of you're not doing something right, Nakia. Something's happening. And I don't want to say that I'm blaming myself, but the data shows that, I'm 0 for 2 at this point, so yeah.
I got a week off of work to recover, and I spent a lot of that time purging everything out of my house. I had to let go of this dream that I had of having a 3rd child, is how I felt.
I would delve into research. I felt like I was doing something and that my children were dependent on how much I knew, and educated myself.
I just said I need to go for a walk by myself. And I cried the whole time, but I needed to just be by myself.
In those moments of my daughter being crazy, my husband and I just being able to look at each other and saying, what if there were 2? It's just a fleeting moment, so you just kind of open yourself up to it and feel that feeling, and then kind of move on to the next one.
I found community through social media, through Sisters-in-Loss and Fertility for Colored Girls. Both of those groups have really helped me move forward. After the 2nd miscarriage, I decided that I wanted to create something. So I crocheted a blanket. When I miss my babies, I'll grab my blanket, and it's small. It's not supposed to be a full blanket because it's supposed to remind me that their lives were cut short.
2 years after my first loss, I got pregnant again, completely unexpectedly. That pregnancy was so far along. After the loss, we named him Max. And a psychologist that we talked to, I'm not ashamed to say we went to therapy, talked about maybe doing something to mark his life. So we planted a tree with our 2 kids.
She was very little. She fit in the palm of my hand. They did molds of her hands. They weighed her. They put her in a little outfit. I don't know how they found an outfit that small for her. It was perfect. And then they also took pictures of her as well. Pictures that are very difficult to look at, but I would never get those memories back if I did not have those there.
There were these adorable handmade stuffed animals from Hawaii, and it was a pig in a Hawaiian quilt cover, and I bought it. And when we came home, I put it in a box, and I knew that when we did a nursery one day, that was the first thing I was going to put on a shelf. Well, that pig is still in our house. He's in my youngest son's room. And every time I look at it, I'm reminded that it took us a little while to get to where we are, but I'm so happy we did.